this is Brian from PeerlessGamer, a regular show of solo role-playing in a futuristic setting using the Ironsworn Starforged rule set by Sean Tompkins. In a second here, we'll get on to our latest episode. I'd just like to remind everybody to like, subscribe, ding that bell. This may not be the last time I mention this in the stream. Just need a proper intro, as sometimes I tend to just drop right into episodes without introducing myself. So, hello, Brian Brake. I am the Peerless Gamer, and hope you enjoy. So from our last episode, we had James going to engage, or a chase scene, if you will, of whoever is running down the hallway away from the office, where it looks like they were eavesdropping on the conversation that Officer Adder and James were having. As you remember in our last scene, Officer Adder and James and Arlie, James's AI assistant, and Dane, who was Dr. Manon's AI assistant, were having a discussion about what it is Dr. Manon was working on and trying to figure out who might be a suspect in the murder of Dr. Manon. We found out that there was an email trail about some working conditions that were going on, and it was during that time we heard something outside and went to check and see what that was, and come to find out it was somebody or something. So James is going to give chase, as we know, and let's get to our starting screen. All right, so for those of you who are new or have been watching for a while, I'm attempting to use an app for rolling the dice instead of using what I was doing before, which was requiring me to do additional setup and additional troubleshooting when something didn't exactly work right. So I'm using something called the Maximal Dice Roller, which you can get off the Windows Store, and I'll put a link in the notes for the location of that. It uses the Unity game engine, and it was one of the few that I found that didn't consistently give me either 1s or 2s or 9s and 10s, which in this game, obviously 1s and 2s would be super excellent, great. 9s and 10s would be on the die 10 in this case would be not good for me always. So what you see here is very minimal interface, but usable, right? You can do anything from D4 all the way up to D100, D1000 if you need to, just by adding, additional D10s here, or percentile die, if you will. So the 2 die 10s are going to be our percentile dice, or our challenge dice in this case. So if we need to roll D100, this will be what we'll roll as well, and then your D6 will be, our attribute plus, skill roll. So very, very nice little interface, very simple. Just go up here and click roll, and I take whatever it gives me down here at the bottom of the screen. So in this case, holy crap. Okay, so that would be bad for me if this was an actual roll. In this case, it would be a double. If I did have something, if I picked a 5 would be excellent. Unless I had something that could counteract or exceed those 10s, I would be in a very bad state. So this is not a roll for what we're doing. Very good. If this is the worst roll we roll tonight, then I'll be doing all right. So, but yeah, it's a very not minimal interface, but it definitely shows what Unity game engine can do for things like dice rolling. In this case, James is we're going to, following along with our flow chart here, we're going to envision the current situation, what our character is doing. So James hears somebody outside the window or outside the door. The station is, I would say, sparsely populated, so it allows for pretty much everybody to spread out There's plenty of living space, but there's also not a lot of foot traffic. So you could definitely tell that somebody was in this hallway. This may be, this may be the only person in this hallway, or the research scientists have really large rooms. Think of it like each one of them having, 1,000 square feet of space, which is half the size of my house for their home slash office slash what have you. So in this case, would we, when we came down this hallway, and I'll ask the Oracle in this case, did we notice any other living quarters that were occupied during this time? So that may actually help us if it's maybe we overreacted and it's not somebody eavesdropping. Maybe there's something else going on. So going to gather information, kind of a post issue there. It's not as we're going along, so it'll be gathering information. So this will be in the reference. So so right here we're gonna gather information based on this right here. So all right, so our first roll with our automated dice system. Wits is one of James's most powerful stats. James has 2 on wits, so our numbers down for our dice roller is, all right, so we got a 7 and a 4. We rolled a 3 on our die, and our wits is a 2. So we're going to say a 5, so it was a weak hit. And the information provides new insight, but also complicates your quest. Okay, so I'm going to say that we noticed that there was other names like on doors as we walked by. So conceivably could be somebody who was walking by, happens to live in this area of the station. So maybe James does pause a second, and maybe during the listening, James saw a shadow, but perhaps maybe it was the next door neighbor, investigating because the door was open to Dr. Manon's house or apartment or living quarters, and that was maybe somebody's just trying to make sure that somebody isn't trying to break in because they knew maybe Dr. Manon was not around anymore. So let's So James is going to make his way out into the hallway, and let me see, what would he see? He sees a hallway, and what does he hear? He heard somebody what appeared to be walking away, or it was echoes or something like that. Maybe it's an echoey hallway. So anybody could show up, in the hallway and make a noise. Does it sound like the person is running away? I don't know. Let's ask the Oracle. I think we would know if somebody was running versus if they were walking. The staccato of the steps, you would definitely notice a difference if somebody was walking or running. So I'm going to say, and we're just going to roll our D10s here, 50 or less. We're going to say that this is, could we tell if they're running? And that would be a, yes, we could tell if they're running. So this will be a, is the thing or person, or, is it making noises, it's running away, or is it just walking like, nothing? So go ahead and roll. So we'll disregard the die 6 in this case, and it is a 58. So likely, yes. So, okay, so we could tell if they're running. Are they running? And I'll say even chance. So we have an 83. So they're not running, they're walking away. All right, so James takes off, heads out the door, and what does he see? Who is it there? Who would be the person there? So person or thing. I'm trying to keep the options open and not just be, hey, it's a person. It could be an AI, it could be a robot, it could be something. We're going to move the story along. So what I want to do is, So it seems like it would be somebody who would be living nearby. That would be the most likely option, since that person is not feeling like they, be there. So let's get. I feel like we need a new NPC here. So we've talked with Dr. Voight, and so perhaps everybody in this section of the station all work on the same team. Yes, let's go with that. That would make sense, right? Everybody kind of lives and works together in the same department or same living area, living zone. So like zone E would be everybody working on the lateral sensor array, or everybody who worked with Dr. Manand and their team would all be housed or living in the same section of the station for whatever reason. But that would be what I would consider logical for a research station, live together, work together, one team, that kind of thing. So I will say that it is a person. And let's see, who would that person be? So coming around the corner, James looks out, kind of alarmed, notices somebody there, and person walking away is a so James sees a person with red frizzy hair with blue highlights, kind of a tequila sunrise kind of thing, narrow face, has a jumpsuit with the color denoting that they're a researcher, and quite tall, probably as tall as James is, and James is in the 6 foot range. Definitely appears, and James says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the person turns around and says, "Oh, hello, my name, I just heard somebody in Dr. Manon's quarters and just heard voices and wanted to see what was going on." James, and by that time, Officer Adder has come to the door and is like, "This is station personnel. It's, Officer Adder. Who are you?" And she says, "My name is Koni Horo. I am one of Dr. Manon's researchers, and still can't get over the fact that she's gone. Brilliant, brilliant person. I live down the hallway here, and I heard voices, and I saw the light on in her quarters, and I wanted to see if it was somebody who had broken in, or, it's not unheard of, but I just wanted to make sure that everything was okay and nobody was doing anything bad." Officer Adder and James, approach her. Officer Adder holds up their, scanning tool. The badge on the person identifies them exactly as they are. That they might have a name tag or something similar on their badge, and then when station personnel might scan that person, and a little holographic thing pops up with who that person is, and it matches who they are, and it says they're Koni Horo, one of the researchers, works in the location of the station, current assignment, lateral sensor array. And so, Dr. Adder says, or Officer Adder asks, Koni, do you have any details or anything that you might want to add to our investigation? This is James. He's helping us with the investigation. This is Arlie, and you see Arlie coming out of the room with Dane, who's Dr. Manon's AI, and Koni sees Dane because the AIs are they interact with one another. So Koni might have an AI assistant as well, that person's name will be Aneth. So AI's name is Aneth. And Aneth is, I would say people don't tend to have human-looking AIs. Maybe unless they some business-related things. So maybe the researcher's AI is some sort of anthropomorphized animal. I'm thinking something that shows their personality but is still able to do work, right? So because you don't want to. People change, those kinds of things. There's no dress code for AI, so it could be anything. So I'm thinking maybe it's what kind of animal would we want? What kind of animals would they have? Different animals here. So Aneth is dressed up as almost like a character you might see on another popular game that exists, and at least in our time, you might see something similar. Dressed as an anthropomorphized bird. Looks like a raven, but a very well-dressed raven in maybe a nice suit. It's a green suit, so black bird, green feathers, green iridescent feathers with a kind of mint green suit. Upon seeing Dane and Arlie, Aneth may come out or may form from either the badge or the assistant pad or computer that Coney is holding, and they all stand there, and Aneth says, "Yeah, I can vouch for Coney. The whole time we noticed and heard sounds, and we went to investigate." You see Aneth stop and look at Dane, and it's in such a way as you can tell that the AIs said something to one another without actually saying anything over cybernetic link or some method. And Aneth also looks at Arlie, James's AI, and they both say something, and you see Arlie go, shakes their head. What would James ask Coney? James is just found out that the doctor was searching for sigma ray, and there was some experiments to be done with the lateral sensor array. So James might ask Coney, there was an experiment that we learned about from Dane that the doctor was going to do. There was one last experiment before she went to the conference. Can you tell us what that experiment was? Would Coney know that information? I'm going to say it's probably an even shot. No, Coney works on the team. I'm going to give it an even shot. Let's give it an even shot here. Coney, did you know what the final experiment was? This was a 94. So Coney doesn't know. Coney doesn't know what the experiment was. Coney said, "Well, this is news to me. The lateral sensor array wasn't online, and from what I understood, Dr. Manon was going to be going to that conference before the lateral sensor array come online. So I'm uncertain as to what that was that's all she was working on as far as I know. You might want to ask another member. I'm only a junior member. I guess Coney could be a junior member, or maybe wasn't completely informed. Would there have been somebody else on their team that might know? I'm going to say it's always an even chance. I don't have any reason to say no or yes. 28. Okay, so in this case, I would say you might want to go talk to Osric. Osric was one of the more senior people on the team. I know that Osric and Dr. Manand did do collaborations of things. I believe Osric was supposed to go to the conference with Dr. Manand, so maybe they would have that information. Osric is working in the lab right now, so but their quarters are right down the hallway here. We might see if they're home. Annette looks at Coney and says, "You're going to be late for your meeting in 20 minutes if you don't take off right now." Coney's like, yes, I'm sorry, I have to go. If you need me, my quarters are right here, and I can make myself available. You just contact Annette, and Annette will schedule some time." And Officer Adder says, "Thanks, we'll definitely do that if we need you." All right, so James goes down to Osric's room just to see if Osric is there. I'm assuming by this time and this part of our world, there would be an indicator or something if maybe the person is not in, or maybe there's a do not disturb sign, or maybe depending on Osric's point of view, doesn't want to let people know if they're in. So she said that he was up in the lab. I think James will just take note of where Osric's quarters are, not too far away from Dr. Manon's and not too far away from Coney's. Might ask Arlie, could you locate where Osric might be right now, which research lab that is? And Arlie said, "Yeah, I'll work on that." James asks Adder if there's anything else that Adder can do, and Adder's like, "Well, I'm kind of at a standstill right now. The only other thing we've got to go on right now is what that experiment was. We're investigating the suit for what might have caused the explosive decompression, but we'll have that information by the end of the day, hopefully, that we can figure out if it was a murder or an accident. Right now we assume, because there hasn't been a suit failure in years, so we're assuming the worst, but it could be anything." James is going to go and make his way back to the public transportation system with Officer Adder. Adder secures the room, relocks the door, puts the security notifications on it to not be unlocked unless it's a member of the security team, noticing that he did not include James in that. And they both make their way back to the spinal system that transports people back and forth, the people moving system on the station. At this point, what do we want to happen? James asks Officer Adder, is the station still on lockdown? Would Osric be able to leave and go to the conference, which is happening fairly quickly? As a matter of fact, they, according to the location of the conference, Osric's going to have to leave in the next few hours if they're going to make that conference. And security is, Officer Adder's like, that is a good question. We should probably go figure that out. I mean, we've released the docking clamps on the ships, but I don't think we're letting any ships leave yet. And the only ship that I know that was capable of making that trip would have been, the traders that are in the station, traders, TRADERS, like yourself. So we need to find out if Osric has booked passage, or if any of the ships are about ready to leave. Yours is obviously no hurry to leave. Speaking of which, did you happen to get any information back from your boss about your relationship with Dr. Manon, or his relationship with Dr. Manon? And James looks at his email. There's nothing from the captain, which he found interesting considering he told him about his friend. And he's like, no, but I'll resend the message. So the Officer Adder takes his leave of James when they get back to the main area and goes back to his office. James is told by Arlie that Osric is at a specific research office. According to the station records, that's where he works. So James makes his way to the research office, or the lab, where Osric and Dr. Manon and their team are working. It's a really big office. It's almost like there's a 3D lab in there. You see several 3D-like printers that are printing, somewhat noisy. They are printing circuit boards in this case. You see other areas that there's a large spool of thread. Looks like metallic thread or something that might be used in the 3D printing process. You see other areas where things have been assembled. There's a couple of other projects that look like they're partially assembled. There's actually quite a bit of hustle and bustle in this lab. And this is obviously the lab where the lateral sensor array is being done. So there's a lot of work being done. 5 to 10 people in here, and this is not it's a big area, but there's enough clutter and enough people where it feels tight. It feels small, like, you're going to potentially bump into somebody, or you're going to have to shield your eyes because they're welding, or they're in the the vacuum, the manipulating arms and sandblasting things, or doing some QA work. So it's quite hustle and bustle, very industrial, and it's noisy. And you see arms articulating arms, doing things, and you see a couple of AIs who are obviously doing some work. They're standing patiently, and you can see them controlling local machinery. There's about, I would say, 8 or 9 people in the room. Do we see Coney? Because I believe if Coney works here, I would say if this is Coney's office or lab, then Coney was probably running towards this lab. So let's say we're going to say it's fairly likely 23%. Okay, so Coney's in there. You see Coney over there working. You can see their AI, Nth, is one of the AIs that's actually controlling a bot. And so you walk over to Coney. She recognizes you, obviously. And James asks, hey, we just wanted to see what was going on. We need to talk to Osric. Is Osric here? And do we see Osric? Does she see Osric? Is Osric in the room? Well, considering Dr. Manand is gone and Osric was one of the more senior people, it might stand to reason that person is there. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a roll. So yes, Coney points out Osric, and Osric is one of the few people that isn't in a welder's goggles or has PPE on, has a jumpsuit, has green hair and brown eyes, a little on the short side, probably shorter than Coney is, probably about 5'5", 5 foot 5 inches, and has a jumpsuit, as a researcher jumpsuit, talking to somebody else in a suit. And you've seen this person before. No, I don't think James has seen that person before. Yeah, hasn't seen that person before. So Osric is talking to this person, and this person is in a suit and a tie, which automatically puts this person out of sorts, because obviously he's not a researcher, and there's not a lot of people walking around in suits and ties. Person's in a suit and tie, has close cropped black hair, bit pale skin, but you make your way over to Osric. Osric, does Osric notice you? Does Osric notice James? Okay, so Osric does not see James walking over. Osric might have their back turned to talk to the person that they're talking to in the suit and tie. James walks over. Maybe he has to walk around a little bit to get where Osric is. Maybe as James walks up, the person talking to Osric sees James and goes, points James out. Osric turns. Osric has green hair, eyes are brown, a little bit older person. If James had to guess, probably in their 60s or 70s. Of course, again, as we know, in this realm, you can live to be 140, 150 years old. So 70 is somewhat what we would call middle age now. Osric turns, and how would Osric be? What is Osric's temperament? Can James read the body language? Let's do that. Let's gather some information. Can he read what's going on here? Oh, that's an interesting little conundrum. So we're going to get at least a weak hit. All right, so James is coming up in a non-aggressive stance. More of a, hey, I'm James. I'm going to be here. I'm here helping the security people. I have some question about Dr. Manand. What would James notice? Smells very dry in the room. lights overhead are what you would call like the old school fluorescent type lights. I mean, they're probably LEDs, but they're like an antiseptic white to give the best possible visibility. Was the debate what did the conversation look like? So that was a weak hit. So let's roll it again, and I would say from a D100 friendly to 1 is friendly, 100 be like super contentious and what have you. I'm gonna say what was the demeanor of the discussion that they're having? 44. Okay, so I would say it's probably about even keel. So it may be like business as usual. There doesn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary. Osric is making gestures. The other person is talking. There's a little tete-a-tete back and forth as James walks up. So that makes it a little easier. James walks up as the person talking to Osric points out, hey, here's somebody. Because obviously James doesn't look like one of the researchers. And turns Osric, says, hello, what can I do for you? What are you doing here in our lab? James introduces himself. I'm helping with the investigation of Dr. Menand. How did both of them react to that? Can I gain some information on what that looks like? Can I read read the room? I want to read the room, which is what I wanted to do with the discussion. Yeah, I'm going to gather some information, figure out. So I'm going to roll some wits. Let me see what we got here. We got a 5 and a 4 and a 1. So I'm going to say based on that, James can't get anything from them about that. I mean, obviously, it seems like this is wits, so it would be 3. So I rolled a 3. James can't get a read on them. He everything seems fairly matter of fact. Like, I'm here to investigate Dr. Menand. Osric is like, yes, I understand. We're a little busy around here, and you see the person in the suit and tie, shaking their head, yes, we do that. And so Osric says, I'm Osric Maddox. I'm now the project manager for the Lateral Sensor Array project. This is Achilles Myrie, who is the chief sponsor or who is helping to bankroll this research station with Atwell Industries. Yeah, we're here to help out in any way we can. We've already talked to Dr. Officer Adder and Officer Garcia, just trying to we're under a tight deadline with this lateral sensor array, so we're sorry if we're a little brusque here, but we need to get this up and running. What can we do for you? James says, well, we were just Officer Adder and myself were just down in Dr. Menand's quarters, looking through some of the final documents. According to Coney, and James mentions Coney, you were supposed to go to a conference off station in the next few hours, but it's my understanding we're not allowing any ships to leave. So were you and Dr. Menand were planning on going to this conference together? Are you still planning on doing that? Which makes sense now that Osric is talking to the chief sponsor of the station, Achilles Myrie. So Osric says, well, that's exactly why I'm talking to Achilles here. I am trying to talk to the people bankrolling this station about getting off to go to the conference. And Achilles' voice is kind of soft. And Achilles says, yes, we're working with security to get some dispensation and to find a ship that is willing to take Osric to the conference. We believe this conference and these breakthroughs are going to be vital to the station and to the legacy of Dr. Menand. James shakes his head and understands, Does that seem plausible? Was there anything there that felt like there was nothing wrong? I'm gonna say kind of like the D100 thing. So I'm gonna say let's gather information. The idea of gathering the information is, does James notice any change in the body language or anything, a kind of a sense motive kind of thing? So I'm gonna go ahead and knock that out here, and I'm gonna roll wits again. Okay, so that is a strong hit. Even with the 6 that I have plus my 2 wits makes it a strong hit. James doesn't notice anything. I would say that maybe Osric is looking a little nervous because they really need to get to that conference. There's a reason that Osric wants to go to the conference. All right, so, but I mean, given the discovery from Dr. Manand, it makes sense that they would want to go to the conference to share this information. James needs the money to buy the ship. This would be something that would be done outside of the captain, because technically he's already delivered stuff. So the money for buying the ship should be in his bank account. So this would be like a little icing on the cake. So I would say let's roll a D100. Let's do 19. Okay, so considering how low this was, even on a half and half, or even a like unlikely, I want to say that James is going to offer the Wild Deliverance as a ship to ferry Osric to the conference. James will say, I have a ship. I have one of the few ships on the station that have been here in the last few days. Not the fastest, but I think we could probably get you there on time. And I do have somewhat of a good relationship with security folks. If we can finish this investigation in the next few hours, it might be worth that. Also, if Achilles can grease some wheels, we may be able to get out of here sooner. So Osric turns to Achilles. I would say James and Osric look at Achilles. Achilles goes, this is another gathering information roll. Does he think he can do it? 42, so even half and half, so below 50. Achilles, I will start working on that. Achilles right now probably doesn't think that he's going to be able to get it done, being as close to the half and half as he can. But Achilles is going to take off, take his leave. I'll work on that. If the station clears you to leave, Mr. Atwood, we'll let you know. And Achilles leaves. And so, yeah, Achilles, would say takes off probably at a somewhat clipped pace, probably a little faster than normal. Maybe that's just the way he walks normally. And Osric and James are left there. Osric says, I would say that this will give us an advantage on our next roll, because James is offering his ship. They didn't exactly, I would say, it makes the job of finding a way to get off the station easier. James asks Osric, and I would say this would be a connection kind of thing. Yeah, let's make a connection roll with Osric and see, because if we make that connection, then we can potentially ask some more questions, right? Oh yeah, heart. Okay, so yeah, that's a strong hit. So 8 plus 3, so his heart is 3. And so we now have a connection with Osric as a potential ferry to a conference, as a paying customer, and as somebody who owes us a favor in some ways, in addition to the pay. So James, I think, will ask Osric, because that's why he went to seek out Osric. I understand you and Dr. Manand were going to the conference together. You have, as it seems like you have kind of a better relationship than some of the other folks. We saw from some of the records of Dr. Manand that there was one last experiment that needed to be done before you went to the conference. Are you aware of what that experiment is? Is Osric surprised by that? I'm going to have to... I'm going to say Osric was not ready for that discussion or that question. And I'm going to gather some information. Less than was likely that he was caught off guard. So is he going to answer the question? Okay, so he is taken aback. How would he react to that? Because if Coney didn't know about it, then that means that maybe there's something else going on with regards to the lateral sensor array that Dr. Manon's not telling the whole team. What if the lateral sensor array isn't what Dr. Manon was working on? What if Dr. Manon and Osric were working on something else? Well, let's go with that line of questioning. So Osric looks, and this is a strong hit for gathering information. Osric, if he could pale, if Osric could pale, Osric looks a little shaken, right? So Osric takes a look around and says, "Would you come with me?" And so James says, "Yeah, sure." So Osric leads James to... So we'll be back in our next episode where Osric is going to be taking James. And also, I think we're going to open it up with a flashback. Not a flashback, but like a cutscene where we go to see what is going on and what has transpired. Maybe involving Achilles and the result of what it might take to get James and Osric and the Wild Deliverance off the station. As you know, they're trying to get to the conference. So we'll have a little cutscene there, a little something that we can see what's going on behind the scenes. I think that's kind of cool. You know, most TV shows might have something like that where you have not the bad guy, but you might have somebody else doing another scene away from what the main characters are doing. So it won't be a flashback. It'll be a flash sideways. I don't know. But I have an idea on what that looks like. And we'll help further the story and give you a little background maybe on some of the connection between Atwell Industries and Mr. James Atwood, our protagonist. So hope you have a good day. Would love some feedback if you're not happy with the pacing. You know, I'm still feeling my way through this. I see some shows that are like, hey, I do 2 roles and here's the scenario and it's done. And it's like, okay. If the pace is a little slow for you, please let me know. I'm learning as I go along. So, you know, my pacing might be a little different than what I'm expecting from a new system. And, you know, hopefully this won't be like a 500 episode thing. I'm hoping to get it done in like 30-ish episodes so that we can move on to something else, maybe a different storyline with different people, maybe a different genre altogether. So, yeah, would love some feedback. You know, like, subscribe, ding that button, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. And we'll talk to y'all soon. Have a great day. And, you know, I'm Brian, the Peerless Gamer. And, yeah, take care of yourselves. Because, as I'm fond of saying, you're the only you have.